who the client is. I've been something who the client is.
Okay, I have 1 o'clock on my iPad. And so I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with our pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an agenda in front of us. Do we have any additions, deletions, modifications with that agenda?
I have a few additions. If we can, under new business, just request a meeting, work session, I guess, to establish 2015 strategic goals for township administrator. And that's just
TA goals.
when we can,
Okay.
when we can meet. Under new business, review action items of the performance and HR audits
Can we do that at the same time, do you
from
think?
Dr. Grice. Right, I think it's essentially, we need to go through that. We can discuss it today and then set a meeting.
Could we do it for at the same time? Set a meeting for the two of them?
I'm just putting these on there.
Okay,
We can
okay,
schedule them
okay.
after everybody thinks about their schedule, their calendar. I'd like to propose a joint work session with City Council. I don't know if you have anything on the books yet, Alex, but if we can add that to new business, just a discussion about what we'd like to talk to them about. I did not see on the agenda where we were setting a meeting for budget meetings.
Under the administrator.
Okay.
No, that,
All right,
that's
great.
what, yeah, that's what it said.
Under administrator, I'd like to get an update on the energy audit and on the 2015 sheriff contract. And then I'd like to add an executive session at the end under 121.22G3.
Which is?
Conference with attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent court action. And then immediately following that, 121.22G1. Consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Yes, pick one.
The motion.
Which one?
121.22G1.
G1.
Yeah, but
Which one, is there a particular one?
Is a
or does it
particular
encompass
part
all
of that
those
employment,
items?
discipline, which part of that extensive,
That's the part that I pulled out of it.
Okay, I just want to make sure it encompassed each of those things.
I think it does.
Okay.
did you leave any of them out? Just because I didn't write it down. Okay.
No.
that was a complete 121.22G1.
Okay.
Any other modifications? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
Second?
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes. Motion to approve the payroll.
Make a motion to approve a payroll in the amount of $254,987.85.
Second?
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Move to approve the minutes, special meeting held December 19, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes. I would open it to the audience to have anyone speak, but since there is no one out there, I guess we will just skip that. We don't have any old business. Let me just sign this. And our next, under new business, is board reorganization, which we do annually. And I will turn the gavel over to Mr. Kretz. And I nominate Mr. Kress for Chair of the Board for 2015. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close nominations, and if the fiscal officer will call the roll.
Sorry, you gotta give me just a second. Ms. Graff,
Yes, Mr. Kress.
well, you said it first. You nominated him, so I
Right.
asked you. Okay. Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Abstain.
Okay. And before I turn it over, I guess, unless you really may take it over and do the nominations for the vice chair.
I'll make a nomination for vice chair, Mr. Paxson.
are there any other nominations? All right. Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
No. It's yours.
Are there any other nominations we're going to do here?
No,
Other
that's
than we're going
the
to go
only
on to the other regional planning or anything like that? We're going to do that today or not?
Yes.
Should.
Yeah,
But you have it now.
Do you
Okay.
have them?
So we have, we're looking for nominations for, I'll need a little help since this is,
Okay, MVM, Miami Valley Military
Regional
Affairs is just a membership.
Okay.
Do we want to have memberships for all of our elected officials and township administrator? And we've done that the past few years.
Historically.
Yeah, that's what we did last year.
okay.
And so I will move to approve the membership to MVMAA for 2015 for all elected officials and the township administrator.
Second.
Ms. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes. And we're looking for a delegate to the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Is there a list of these that I could have, or can you write them all?
Okay.
I know we have Miami Valley Regional Planning.
Miami
Green-
Valley Regional Planning.
Greene County Regional
Greene County
Planning.
Regional Planning, TAC, as an alternate, because,
You have that list that I gave you.
yeah, I don't.
Okay, it's,
know what
yeah,
it was.
Miami Valley Regional Planning,
We have TAC.
TAC, and then Greene County Regional Planning.
Okay.
And we have a delegate for to the school.
Yeah, last year the board decided to do the quarterly
Oh, okay.
meetings with myself and an elected
Right.
official to the meeting between the superintendent and
City manager.
Right. Okay.
But on the TAC, your primary last year was Mr. Amrine, and then you had an alternate elected official.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission has to be, the delegate has to be an elected official.
Correct.
And as I am first vice chair of the organization and should be chair next year, I would appreciate being reappointed as the delegate.
And for Miami Valley and for Greene County, we need a alternate, correct? as well?
That's correct.
Right.
Okay. I'll nominate Carol
You
Graff.
can't, you can't.
I can't, okay, go ahead.
Well, unless he
I'll-
passes the graph.
I'll nominate
Yeah.
Carol Graff for the delegate to Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. And the alternate was Mr. Kratz, as he was last year.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Move to nominate Mr. Amrine as TAC delegate with Mr. Zaharieff as the alternate, as the Technical Advisory Committee to MVRPC.
A second.
Ms. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
And move to appoint Mr. Paxton as the Greene County Regional Planning Commission, Coordinating Commission Delegate.
Second. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but right now.
Is there an
This is what's
alternate?
left of it.
Yeah, we just, I mean,
Well, as long as we are part of it, it's,
Who's the alternate?
you were the alternate last year, you won't be the alternate.
I was last year, I was never called upon, so that's fine.
Okay, I move Mr. Kretz to be the
The alternate.
alternate.
Okay. Ms. Graff,
No,
ahead, Paul.
I made the nomination.
I know.
Ms. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr.
Okay, you
Kretz.
want for the next one? Okay.
Did you vote,
He gave
Mr.
me-
Kretz?
Yes,
He gave me the gavel, so he's,
I voted before I gave it to you.
yeah.
Bear with me.
I'm
I
trying.
learned quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, when he pressed it, I passed it back till he voted and then took it.
I'll nominate Carol Graff as the delegate to attend the quarterly meetings with the school superintendent and city manager with the township administrator.
Second.
Mr. Kretz, oh,
Let's just
sorry.
have a discussion on that. Did we hear anything back from those meetings? Was there anything
We
that
only had one.
came about those discussions last year?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Kratz made the report after the meeting. The last meeting
Yeah.
was canceled, so we didn't have a fourth meeting last year.
Does it seem to be flying pretty good? I mean,
It was generally a state of the schools report, quite honestly.
all right.
It was, I don't want to say it wasn't a productive meeting because I think it was beneficial to have everyone be there and communicate and show a face. But at the end of the day, it was more of a report card on what was happening with the schools and the update. And there were a couple updates that I gave back, and I think Mr. Zaharoff gave one as well, because he attended a meeting that I did not get to. But it was generally, you know, when they did the iPad program, and then they were successful on 2 grant awards that they received, and things like that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there wasn't a whole lot of discussion as far as shared services or anything like that. It never seemed to evolve to that
Okay,
yet.
okay.
So,
Well, I would just like to have a question or maybe a discussion on when we appoint somebody to a board. I just want a clear understanding of what the authority of that person has in representing the, like Beavercreek, like Miami Valley Regional Planning, Greene County Regional Planning, and a discussion that the board would send one trustee to those things. What kind of authority does that trustee have to make in a decision that might impact Beavercreek Township?
Yeah, and as we've done it in the past, with the different positions, is that the board member, for example, if there is a vote, and I remember having this discussion at Miami Valley Regional Planning, that the chair would come back and ask how you want them to vote at that meeting. Yeah, and it was only the one time that I recall that that's taken place.
In the form of a resolution or, like carrying the vote to the meeting, like,
In fact, I think we did pass a resolution at that meeting to take to Miami Valley Regional.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it was ongoing places, I believe.
I don't attend the others, but I would assume the other meetings are much like, similar to the other meetings that I have attended, like with the schools and with Mr. Kretz last year. It's more informational.
Okay.
For example, the schools meeting, I know we did discuss things that are going on in the township, the city, but as Mr. Kretz indicated, a lot of times it was more the city and the township listening to what is going on in the schools, construction updates and things like that.
MVRPC itself is usually doing the business of MVRPC, their budget, their staffing, and the projects that are going on. There are very few instances where, and Mr. Kress went almost every meeting last year, very few instances where the individual vote has an impact on each individual jurisdiction. It's usually an overall kind of policy, and very rarely touches the individual jurisdiction, which I believe is very different from Greene County Regional Planning, which talks about each individual community and their projects. That's not true with MVRPC.
Okay.
Is that a fair?
It's a fair statement. It's the things that have been voted on are generally, like Carol said, administrative or one vote can always make a difference. I understand that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it might be appropriate to just share that agenda with each trustee this year.
Okay.
There's an agenda that's distributed before each monthly meeting, and so that would at least give some time to be able to give advance questions if you have any. And it'd be the same, I think, for the Greene County, for both planning commissions.
Also, the agendas and the full packet are online
Right.
for anyone who would like to see them. And the minutes are all online too. for MVRPC.
Okay.
And the meeting's at a new place now. Where did Mr. Armstrong go?
Thanks.
The TAC meeting's going to be at a different place now. Where it is. Right.
Oh, not yet. He's not, I thought she was just answering a question.
Okay, TAC, because we were talking about regional planning, I believe the TAC meetings are going to be at the Ludlow, 10 North Ludlow.
I believe those meetings have been moved, yes.
Yes.
The first one to take place at the new location will be this week, I believe, next
Third.
week. I don't remember.
Yeah, they're up on the 7th floor.
But it's, right, it's up on the,
Now can I take the,
And the MVRPC meetings are being moved to 1515 South Main Street from the Dunbar District.
One call.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxson,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Zahara, if that complete the boards we need to appoint to?
Yes, it does.
Okay, very good. All right. Moving on to other new business. We'll start with what you had on the agenda first. So the membership, we've already approved, rejoining that, correct? Employee recognition program.
Mr. Kretz. The gavel.
Thank you.
So you don't get confused or confuse me.
good afternoon. You received in your packets a report and recommendations of the Employee Recognition Program Committee. I prepared a statement of a motion of approval should you wish to go there. Following the approval of the Employee Recognition Policy on September 29th, as established by that policy, an Employee Recognition Committee was established and met last month, and they have made a nomination to you for Employee of the Year recognition to be featured at the Beavercreek Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards Banquet on January 30th, 2015. I'm happy to discuss any questions you might have about the nomination and the proceedings of the committee.
It sounds like the process worked.
It actually ran pretty smoothly once it got started. I mean, there were delays mostly due to the performance audit and our desire to have some of the professional consultants review the work we were doing to make sure it was going to be consistent with recommendations that they were going to make. So we didn't actually meet until December, later than the deadline that was articulated in the policy, but I think that's understandable. Once it Once the meeting was convened, it proceeded smoothly and relatively easy decision-making.
Okay, do we need to name names here, or on this?
I'm sorry? We need a motion from the board in order to send a nomination to the chamber for their awards banquet.
And we have Mr. Barone and Ms. White, correct?
Well, I was gonna
That's
say there's
the
no names
intention.
on this motion.
I would add their names. I think
Well, it was the
it's
fiscal office.
the employees of the fiscal office.
Okay,
I would add Mr. Barone and Ms.
all
White.
right. I'll move to approve the recommendation of the Employee Recognition Committee to name the employees of the fiscal office, Ms. Deb White and James Barone, as Beavercreek Township Employee of the Year to be featured at the Beavercreek Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards Banquet on January 30th, 2015.
I can still do
One
this.
second. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Can we have some discussion on that, please?
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would respectfully decline the nomination. I would prefer that Ms. White get it alone, as I feel that she should not have to share legal.
Any other discussion?
Any other discussion? I'll leave that up to Mr. Barone at that point. I think Mr. Barone, you're recognized in my appreciation.
I appreciate the
So, and
committee,
if you'd like to accept it and let Ms. White accept it on behalf of the chamber, that's your choice. If you'd like to decline it in full, that's your decision as well. So, but either way, understand that you're recognized and appreciate it.
I appreciate the committee considering me, and in light of what transpired last year, I just think that it's probably best that Ms. White just take the nomination and the award alone.
Paxton, do you want to modify the motion or leave it as stands?
I could modify it on Jim's recommendation, although I would like to say, in respect to his wishes, I would like to have the board draft a letter of accommodation for his file. So maybe I could redo this motion?
Maybe you want to withdraw the motion and withdraw the second and then make a new motion? Would that make it easier for you? Okay, so you're withdrawing your motion?
Withdraw the motion.
Second.
You're withdrawing your second.
Withdrawing the second.
Okay.
All right, so my motion would be, I guess, I think this is that, make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Employee Recognition Committee for Deb White as the Employee of the Year, Beavercreek Chamber of Commerce Awards Banquet, to be held on January 30th, 2015, and to draft a letter of accommodation for James Barone in his work and efforts toward the overall direction of this recommendation. So, does that sound right? Because his work also, and the recognition of the awards committee also, I think he deserves a layer of accommodation for his file.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you second it, then you can discuss it.
Let's do a second first. And then
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, would you be comfortable, based on the motion that Mr. Paxton just wrote, effectively it says the same thing as the motion we started with, that we're recognizing. Would you be okay if we, and I hate to ask Mr. Paxton to reiterate a new motion again, but if we went back to the initial motion, which recognizes yourself and Ms. White, what I'm concerned about and what I want to make sure is that the integrity of the committee that we established is maintained, and that the committee, not the board, just nominated these individuals. And I think it's important, I personally think it's important that when your peers nominate you and your coworkers nominate you, that it's recognized, and that the Board of Trustees recognizes that, because that's what we asked you to establish a board, we asked you to chair it, and we asked those members of that committee to make those nominations. And effectively, Mr. Paxton's motion does the same thing, but I'd like to see it follow through with what we tried to start.
The only comment I would make about that is, I mean, the committee's role is to make recommendations to the trustees for Employee of the Year. There is language in the policy as adopted in September that allows for the insertion of letters of commendation and other informal awards into employee files. So that's consistent with the policy you adopted in September to do it that way. And if, in respect for an employee's wishes, you wish to do it that way, I don't believe that there's any violation of your policy involved there.
Like I said, I don't want the committee to feel that they were overstepped, at least by the board. So if Mr. Brown's happy, then I'm fine with where things stand. I want to make sure that you're recognized. And
I was just trying to maintain some professional decorum and just say very little. And I think I would still like to do that in a public meeting. We're trying to avoid playing this out in public like we did last year, and it seems like we're doing it all over again. So I would prefer that Ms. White have the honor alone, as she has done equal amounts of work and was employed here before I was.
Okay.
I did nominate her 3 years in a row prior to me getting the award, so I prefer that she not share it, because no one else has had to share it in the past.
Okay.
That's my view.
Okay. Call.
Okay, then
We have a
I'll
second.
reread my,
I think we have a second, so.
Well, you do, you've had discussion, so as long as you're
Okay.
finished with discussion, everybody good. And I gotta remember, I'm sorry. Mr. Paxton Mr. Paxton,
yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
and Ms. Graff.
Yes. As chair, you can't make motions, but you second.
Okay. A couple things that were added as far as calendar dates. Thank you, Mr. Amrine. Please express our appreciation to the committee. A couple things that were added: a meeting to review and establish 2015 strategic goals for township administrator. Is that something we can do at the next, prior to, like, before the next regular meeting? Do we want to do it in between? What is everyone's
I
calendar?
would prefer doing it in between,
Okay.
because I think that might take some discussion, and I think we could do the review action items for HR audit at the same time, so we
Okay.
could have a dual meeting, a dual work session for those issues, rather than trying to push the following meeting even longer. So I would
Alex, did
like
you
it next
have-
Monday.
Not
yeah.
to skip ahead, but as far as budget meeting time frame and trying to work these
This
meetings
is at the
in
end of the
between.
month, right?
You're at-
Yeah, the dates, to jump ahead, the dates that I recommended were January 22nd, 23rd, 26th, or 27th. Any of those days I threw out there. The only thing that has come up since then is on the 23rd, I've been asked to speak at Rotary about all the recent changes in the township.
But that would be like 12 to 1,
Yeah.
or 11 to 1.
New. I was told.
Well, lunch starts early, isn't it? I was going to be at that here.
Okay, so we're talking dates then that are ahead of that. So Mr. Paxson, I guess, and Ms. Graff. Do we have dates next week that work for both of you?
Monday is usually, I set aside usually for trustees, so that would be the best one for me.
So you're talking about 20?
Wednesday's out,
January 12th?
12th.
Oh, the 12th, Monday? This for the,
This-
we're not going to determine, this
goals?
is for the administrators,
The
the 5.
right, up to
to
5.
five.
Yeah, could be 2.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to try to determine all 5 of them this meeting?
Well, or no more than 5, whatever goals we,
It's to review and start discussion about them.
Okay.
So if we reach
Come up with
conclusion on 1, or if we reach conclusion on 4, that's up to us, I guess. But
Okay.
I guess the objective would be to come to the meeting with ideas already in hand. Some of those being off the 2 audits that came, and the others may be not even on those audits. So, so I guess the question is the 12th, and then is 9 o'clock available to start?
I don't like that. I would like the afternoons are not good for you.
Afternoon's fine too.
I
But didn't know
prefer
how long we would
afternoon.
go. We can go longer if we start in the morning.
Well, we start at 1. We should be finished by 4. I don't think they're going to take more than 3 hours.
Okay, so 1 o'clock?
On the 12th?
On the 12th. Okay.
And the purpose to discuss the strategic goals for the township administrator and review action items from both audits.
From the HR
And
audit.
it's the
Both audits?
2015 strategic goals for the TA, and then like exactly as you stated on the 2 audits.
And reviewed actions.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll cover both of those.
1 o'clock on the
At 1 o'clock, at the 12th here. Thank you.
Under new business also, we had added just general discussion about a next joint meeting or work session with city council. And I'll ask Mr. Zahareff, is there anything been discussed or on the books for that yet?
There's nothing discussed on a joint meeting. However, I do have a meeting scheduled this 7th at 9 a.m. with my monthly meeting with the city manager of Beavercreek to discuss a few action items. And I can add this to start looking at possible joint meeting dates. I believe last year we did it in the May, June timeframe.
Okay.
So I can come back with some possible dates, hopefully by the next meeting.
It'd be nice to see something in the first quarter, as far as getting together, if that's possible. And not only not only shared services, but even leveraging our community buying power on even third-party services that are out there that either they're using, we're using, maybe different vendors for, that we can team up on. Nothing else under new business. We'll move on to administrator.
Thank you, Board. Happy New Year. First action item, I'd like to go ahead and start scheduling the 2015 appropriation budget meetings. I did send out an email late last month in regards to some dates. And they were, as we discussed just earlier, the 22nd, 23rd, 26th, or 27th.
I'm available all 4.
Right, I am too.
Prefer early mornings.
I have a problem with mornings,
Mornings.
yes.
You have problems with morning or you prefer morning?
Do what?
You said you have a problem with the morning?
The mornings I have some commitments.
Okay, well, that's, okay. He doesn't like morning. He has something else. But, no.
1 o'clock.
I don't mind it. We could set tentatively 1 o'clock for each of those morning, except for the 23rd, because you'll be busy at least until 1:15, I believe. You wouldn't be back here till 1:30.
You want to start at 2 o'clock that day, or is that too late?
That's fine.
That'd be fine with
That's
me.
for rolling.
What day is that on?
Friday.
On the Friday, the 23rd,
23rd?
would be 2 p.m., and the others would be 1. Is that, Mr. Paxton, would that be okay with you?
Last year, we scheduled 3 days, so if you want to do 22nd, 23rd, but since we're doing, we did full days, I think, last year.
We did
a couple
full days in
So we'll probably schedule all 4 days in the afternoons, with the exception of the 23rd starting at 2 o'clock.
Okay. So So the others are 1? Okay.
Yeah, 22, 23rd, 26th, and 27th.
1 o'clock on the 22nd, 2 o'clock on the 23rd, and 1 o'clock on the 26th, correct?
And
And
27?
27.
And 27th.
Do we need all this?
And then you can cancel if they're
I was gonna say,
unneeded,
do we
correct?
need all this?
Yeah, I don't know that you'll need all those, but you're right, we can.
You can do the public notice for it, and then if it's
Yeah.
canceled, it's canceled.
It's easier to delete than to...
As long as you understand and realize staff leaves at 4:30, so your meetings technically should be over each day by 4:30. To try to help.
Right, or they would just flex their time the next day.
Thank you, Board. And also, just a reminder that January 13th, Beavercreek Township will be hosting the Greene County Township Association Dinner at the basement of 61's at 6:30. There was 2 additional items added to the agenda under my section, the 2015 energy audit. That is moving forward. The consultant has asked for prior year's bills in regards to the facilities that we are looking at. So hopefully they'll be able to review the bills and set some times to complete the assessment of the actual buildings.
Have they given you a ball, is this to be completed in 90 days, 60 days, 30 days? Do they have a timeline?
They have not given us a
They
timeline.
have not given us a timeline. They were waiting to get the
Until you give them...
bills
Right.
and all that, which they should have in the last month.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. The other item is to discuss the contract for the Greene County Sheriff for 2015. As I indicated in an email to the Board, I've started conversations with the Sheriff. He is reviewing numbers for 2015 in regards to the agreement. That would start, the next agreement would start March 1st of 2015. I did indicate that we would be interested in following more of a budget cycle year. He agreed to that as long as it met with the county's payroll timeframe, and so we're going to be looking at that. So this next contract will be a shortened contract, and will essentially expire at the end of 2015 based on budgets and payroll for both the township and the county.
Will you sign 2 contracts simultaneously, or just one short?
Just one, and then we'll continue on. The sheriff he indicated that he feels more comfortable doing the yearly contracts. So we're going to go from there. I did meet with the sheriff last week in regards to some of the action items in the contract that need to be changed. Obviously, the county sheriff's cost for the 4 deputies, but since the starting tomorrow after the county commissioners meet in regards to the annexation, there will also be some changes to the agreement in regards to the sheriff and their responsibility of opening and closing the parks.
Okay.
On that, at the county commission meeting, is it this week they're going to act on the court's decision?
Yes, tomorrow it's on their agenda.
Okay, and so
Vote.
immediately following that, does then the city police understand that they take over those responsibilities?
That's why I'm meeting with Mr. Cornell on the 7th at 9 a.m. So that we're
Okay.
understanding whose services and what. Yes, the sheriff understands that.
Okay.
There was a little bit of confusion last month in regards to, there was apparently a rumor going around in the law enforcement world that Beavercreek Police was already handling that, and I had to clarify that with the sheriff. So they definitely understand that, what their responsibility is. Also, it's in the annexation petition that the city has filed, clearly dictates who's going to be providing the service, and that's the city of Beavercreek.
From a liability standpoint, should we follow up to the city after the commission meets?
Yes, I will be attending.
With a written reiteration of who's responsible for police services?
I can. I'll be meeting, I will be going to the county commission meeting tomorrow. I'm assuming the city will be there as well.
Anything else under administrator?
Board, that's all I have. Thank you.
Human resources.
Ms. Gustafson's not here. Her bi-weekly report is there. And just to add something that is not in the bi-weekly report, we did receive close to 30 applications for the vacancy in the road department. Mr. Parks is reviewing those applications today, and we'll be establishing a process with the HR director as soon as she returns.
Anything else under human resources, board? Zoning, Mr. Amron.
Good afternoon once again. You have the bi-weekly report from the department in front of you. I'll be happy to answer any questions. That I will point out that the figures for permits for the year 2014 are final and represent in single-family dwelling permits an increase of 131% from last year. Again, the numbers are small. The increase is from 26 to 60, but not insignificant in a township of some 3,000 residences, 5,000 citizens. And the overall increase in zoning permits for the year was 33%. So any other questions you might have, I'll be happy to entertain.
See, our tent population is dropping.
Tent requests.
Yeah.
Those are the requests.
Well, part of that too is that
You would want to understand.
somewhat more tents are being covered by single permits there, than was the case last year. So, yeah, the tent city is gone.
Any challenges that you're facing for the new year that we need to be aware of? Staffing, resources?
Nothing that's glaring at this point. I got wind today of a possible tough conditional use case that may be looming on the horizon, but I don't have any information to share with you about that today. The other cases that are pending are the specific site plan application for River Reserve. We have a variance application for some frontage in the extreme northern part of the township. That'll be an interesting discussion, but I don't think the outcome is controversial. And the conditional use application is for a permit to act as a broker for the sale of firearms from a private residence, and that activity would also include repair parts and things like that. We have precedents for granting such a conditional use from as recently as 2012. So I don't expect that to be especially problematic either.
Does our zoning code currently, though, even though it may permit or allow that as a conditional, is there any restriction as far as the level of FFL that they can operate under?
That gets to the whole nature of conditional uses. Once a conditional use hearing is open, the Board of Zoning Appeals has really broad rights to impose any conditions they want. So no, they're not specified. Generally, statutorily, the board can impose restrictions on hours of operation, parking, screening, lighting, noise restrictions, intensity of use, number of employees, how much traffic is generated. The general thrust is that when someone is running their business, an occupation from a residence in a residence district, that no substantive change to the residential character of that district be noticeable. And so any condition, but I think I'm correct in saying that the board can impose a broad range of restrictions on those activities.
In this case, does the individual already have a FFL, Federal Firearms License? Because ATF will...
The person has been...
ATF will determine...
has been repairing firearms as a hobby, but he needs a license from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in order to act as a broker. What happens is that someone will purchase a firearm through the mail. That firearm isn't sent directly to the purchaser, it's sent to the broker, and then they make an appointment to pick it up. And this fellow has not been doing that piece. He's been repairing and servicing and so on and so forth. But all transactions will be by appointment only. There's no retail operation here. He's not selling guns. He's repairing them and acting as the broker.
In the case of 2012, that was exactly, it was the ATF was involved, but essentially his business at the house was the middleman, if you will, in regards to...
Agent of record.
Yeah, so there was no firearms on site where residents or customers would come to the house and pick up the firearms. Those were always sent from the manufacturer directly to the consumer.
And there will absolutely be no discharge of firearms on the site either.
Do you have to, at that point, then you'll give notice of the hearing, obviously, to neighbors within a certain area, 500 feet?
Right. That letter will go out tomorrow.
Okay. Because obviously if they see open carry coming on in and out of the property, you could get phone calls.
Right.
And in the past, the ATF has weighed in on the recommendation.
Right.
Yeah, they're the ones that do the background check, and they will not issue the license until the zoning is taken care of. So
everything we're doing is subject to theirs anyway.
Right.
So.
ATF is who referred this fellow to us. So
A couple of questions. You talked about employees. If I remember correctly, unless it's changed in our resolution, there are to be no employees other than family members. The amount of space used for the business can't be more than 25% of the dwelling, and they can't be in the garage.
right.
The business cannot be, in addition to what you're saying, and the sale of goods would only be if they have made the goods, that it's not to be a retail facility.
Right, and those conditions remain in effect, and in fact, the applicant has done quite a good job of addressing them point by point in his application materials. So, yeah, the amount of space devoted to the business and so forth is relatively small. It's just a matter of turning a hobby into a more official business on the point of his retirement from the Air Force.
Good luck to him.
Thank you.
Anything else for zoning from the board?
I appreciate you getting the information to me, and I sent the In Touch article in with the new numbers. And if you need any, do I remember correctly in that you are doing some revisions of the zoning resolution?
Yes,
in the process of, okay.
That'll be in my goals statement for the year. It's actually turning into a rather ambitious set of goals for the year, but yes, rewriting fairly major rewrites of 3 segments of the resolution with edits, more minor edits in several other sections of the code are part of the goals for the year.
Which ones were the major ones?
The floodplain district overlay, the wellhead protection overlay, and the business corridor. They're all overlay districts. Well, I guess floodplain is its own resolution chapter, floodplain and river protection district, but the 2 others are overlay districts. And the business corridor, meaning along Route 35, will include significant work on signage. That'll probably be the hardest work.
The sign resolution essentially will be modified.
So the sign resolution will be pulled into that necessarily.
I just want to flush it out a little bit because I know we are busy, so I was going to do it add to my article when we have the opportunity.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Mr. Paxson, anything else for zoning?
Appreciate all you did last year. Appreciate all you did last year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. IT, Mr. Terry.
Good afternoon, Board. Have my biweekly submitted and be happy to answer any questions. I did reach out and touch base with Green Tree, the IT
Consultant.
consulting company there. They have an appointment with them Wednesday at 1300 to go over some of the our equipment and what they're going to need to have access to in order to give you a thorough report.
Okay.
The RFP from the city,
Yes,
is that to work for that?
it's to provide support for the city, yes.
To provide support on a hourly
IT
basis?
support
or-
would be basically outsourced.
So you're working on an RFP for the city for per hour basis, is that what it is?
Well, that's what we're reviewing right now to see if we can maybe use some shared services and bring them under some of our equipment, our umbrella, to share some of the costs, reduce some of our cost and theirs as well.
Okay.
How's that process going, Mr. Zahariff? Is it, as far as the RFP, does it look like a scope of work that we can provide? When is it due?
It's, right now, legal's reviewing the RFP, and then our deadline to put a quote into the city is the 21st of this month. And then they will be reviewing all that, all the quotes that come back in regards to what they put out. We are expanding ours a little bit with some discussion of being able maybe to expand our infrastructure and the city's infrastructure as well. So,
As far as the hosting?
Yes.
Physical and okay.
physical communication between all the city buildings. Right now, we have the infrastructure to do that. It would just simply be an adding on to that infrastructure and line of sight for different, for example, the microwave systems. So we're working on all that information as well as all the other action items the board passed on the 22nd meeting for IT.
And Mrs. Zahariff, you'll be involved in that meeting with Green Tree as well?
Yes, I'll be there at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll send out invites to both the chief and to Mr. Zahariff.
Great. Any questions for IT? Other than that? Mr. Paxson? Okay. Anything else to add?
No, sir?
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Board.
Mr. Parks for roads.
All I have this 2 weeks is the biweekly report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are we ready for tomorrow?
Yes, we are.
What report have you had? What forecast have you gotten?
Anywhere from 4 to 6.
Oh, golly
Starting
gee, it
after
goes up
midnight.
every time I hear it.
The last NOAA report came out in June through Green County EMA. Storm has changed a little bit, so we are in a 4 to 6 area. If it comes any further south, we'll have a lot more, so.
What time are you planning to start our people out there?
As soon as the dispatcher calls.
Which is, what time are they forecasting? 10?
You know, they say
11?
after midnight. but
Okay.
It all depends. And usually dispatch is real good when the county supervisor says, or whoever the county supervisor is.
If I get
from the
home
sheriff's
before
office.
10 o'clock tonight, I'm in good shape.
You should be in good shape if you're home before 10.
That's all I'm concerned about. And I can
Stay
stay
until
home
about-
tomorrow.
Stay until about noon tomorrow and you should be good again.
I have a question on just process. Walk me through when we have an event like over the weekend with rain on Factory Road. How do we know that the road is flooded? Is it visual? Somebody calls
Yes,
it in and tells us?
actually, like this past Saturday, I got a phone call from the sheriff's office. They reported it, excuse me, that the road had some water going across it. I immediately called 2 guys in. They started in. Someplace in between the guys getting in and getting the signs back out, it came up quickly because at 3:24, the shift commander actually called and said, "Hey, Factory Road's underwater. We've got a car off," and I said, "We got cruising route." So that's how that process works. Now during office hours, we'll go down and check it periodically if we're in.
Okay. I didn't know if we had any flood sensors or anything like that would pick up that there's water. It'd go off all the time, but.
Yes,
I want them to.
actually.
But in the middle of the night, how are you notified?
Yeah,
That's
and
my
it's
question.
through the sheriff's office. We did review potentially looking at signage that does have sensors, but the cost is pretty high. But
It's less expensive than building a new road.
True, and that's when we decided to go to the other route in regards to the work we're continuing to do down there. That's an action item for Mr. Parks and I. We've already discussed setting up the next stakeholders meeting to continue to meet with all the landowners down there and move forward with the ideas of cleaning out the drainage tile, which the county is receiving quotes to clean that. And that essentially looks like where the problem was this weekend, or at least when I went down on Sunday. Looks like it's coming back through that drainage tile as well. The other thing we're also working with is the other landowners in regards to constructing an emergency swell, so that when we do get the floodwaters, it has someplace to go. So,
How far back do you put the high water signs? Do you put it right where the water is, or far enough back so people don't come to the road in the first place?
Actually, we put up 2 sets. On, we'll say the south end, there's a warning sign at Indian Ripple, so that they don't have to come down, and then one
Okay.
at Colonial, so that they can turn around without getting down in there. And then coming from the north side, there's one at Alpha Bell, and then one just over the hill, so they can make that first driveway at the county to get turned around if they miss the first one. How they can miss the first one's beyond me, but they do.
Someone had questioned me yesterday to come down, and why was it so far down? I don't go, when I know it's gonna rain, I don't go, so.
we definitely give plenty of warning, but I can tell you from personal experience, meeting with Mr. Parks down there and parking on a closed road in the township vehicle, that cars are still flying at high rates of speeds around the signs, as well as the township vehicle that was on the roadway, to only slam on their brakes at the
Once it's in
flood.
the water.
Yeah. So.
And I drive that way all the time, and they will fly by those signs more often than not.
Yeah, the
Hilltop.
questions I've been asked have been, why don't we put a sign at, I can't think of the name of the road, Bellbrook, or whatever it is right there.
Alpha Bell, well, she said they
It
do.
is.
Yeah.
They put it
South
up.
Alpha Bell.
It is, yeah.
Saying that factories closed so that they don't keep going
It
right
is.
down.
There's actually 2 there. One that says high water,
Yeah.
road closed.
Yep.
And that's a smaller barricade. Then once you get down probably another 100 feet, there's a
Up
type
at Indian.
3 barricade sitting in the middle of the road.
Right. No, I'm talking up at Indian Ripple.
Yeah, there is one. at
There's a
Indian
sign
Ripple.
at Indian Ripple
That's what they-
that says that, and then the next
Usually at
street,
Indian Ripple
Colonial, is the closed.
Factory.
Right,
in
but
Alphabet?
you're talking on factory, and all linear on
Yeah.
factory. I'm talking.
Oh, you're talking
I'm
east
talking-
west.
Yeah, east of that. I'm sorry,
Well,
west.
you just tell them not to come.
But my answer back is you'll drive by that one to get down there and see if you believe it, and then you'll.
Then you'll actually drive by 3 to make sure that it's still underground.
Okay. The gist of the question was if we have an automated system of telling us in the middle of the night that the road's flooded, or we wait and we have to react to someone calling it in. Either.
Yeah, it's reactions, and during the daytime hours, it's our staff, and then after hours, it's the county sheriff.
And actually, the sheriff's very good at keeping an eye on it because they know it's a known problem, so.
I hear things on the radio about it being closed as well, but it'd be nice. Maybe there is on the webpage.
Actually, we put out a nixle.
We put out a nixel.
Okay, all right, so it's out there.
Oh,
So
It's out
you
there.
can
haven't
either get it
gotten
by email or text.
My Nixle hasn't come through from the sheriff's, and I usually get a sheriff one.
You don't, you have to sign up on our website.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on this, well,
Does that
Because the
feed
sheriff
social
doesn't.
media or not?
We're looking into that, whether we can,
Feed that.
yeah, feed the Nixle. So if we put either the sheriff or us post something on Nixle, it would automatically go to Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at that as well.
I came down, it was Saturday, Hilltop, and there was a little bit of water. Did we have any trouble with Hilltop? That was, okay, because there was some water, and I said, oh, that was dumb, I just went through it. But it was only about a foot and a half.
It comes out on the edge of the road, right there along the levee,
Yeah.
as you're going towards Fairgrounds.
I was coming the other way. I was coming from Fairgrounds.
Okay, if you were coming from, it's right there at the edge, on occasion, when we get the heavy rains.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else for Mr. Parks?
Keep the roads clear.
We will do that.
Thank you. Chief?
Good afternoon, Board. Just a couple things for you real quick. The first is we have the biweekly report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the Board may have on those items. Related to that, we do have some end-of-year numbers. I've got an email question over the weekend regarding that, so I just wanted to give you a quick heads up. I'll have more detail for you at the next meeting, but 2014, we ended up with 5,443 emergency incidents responded to. It's an 85 incident increase over the prior year of 2013, or a 2% increase total. So a moderate but definite increase there. One of the things we're working through right now is, right now it looks like there's more EMS calls than the prior year, and there probably were, but we also had reclassified some call for service types, and so that may not be an exact translation there. So we'll let you know how that shakes out at the next meeting, and as we're preparing our annual report and the incident numbers that go along with that. So any other questions on kind of the general workload that I could answer for you?
Did you have
now?
the number of fires?
The number of fires were down by 5 incidents last year. We had a total of 113 fire calls. I don't have the structure fires broken out of that yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last thing for you for today is I just wanted to confirm that we're going to be all right to go ahead and finalize our plans for the township's, for the fire department's award banquet. Right now we're scheduled January 16th at 18:30, at 6:30 in the evening. Our tentative review is that we brought in $3,000 in fire department donations. We have an estimated cost of $1,750 for the event. And I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any issues before we finalized that and had that celebration. So,
Are we charged at all for the venue?
yes, we pay for the golf course
For the facility?
banquet facility, and that's the facility and the food both.
Okay.
There is an
Did they
open
waive
bar
the
that
facility
is.
fee if because of the food or not?
I don't think
it's
so.
per
I'm
dinner.
sorry.
It's all, I asked if they waived the facility fee because we
I don't believe so. I think we get a discount as a local government, but I don't recall them splitting off one fee versus the other. I think it's an inclusive for that.
So you said the event itself, you project the cost at,
$1,750.
but you've raised 3,000 in
Yes, sir.
donations?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there is a bar there, but that is all cash bar for the individuals to pay. So there is no township money donated or otherwise that goes towards alcohol. So,
And I appreciate your sending me the report that I included in the In Touch. I assume you will. I just took the whole thing,
okay.
put it
well,
in,
I'm glad
so
I was able to
that
help.
I think it was very clear and concise, and should let the individuals in the community know what it is we did, why we did it, what's being done, and how it's being manned. Because I think there's been a great deal of concern. I know the reporters have been trying to come up with whatever it is. And so an accurate report is much better, and people can't say they didn't know afterwards.
Well, thank you, and we are working with the city right now to make sure that the township addresses are updated for this mailing, so we'll be getting that to them later this week.
One thing I had is Mr. Ankeny had come in a few weeks ago and gave us dates for 2015 soccer tournaments.
Yes, they're working on that. With the holiday, we did not get the numbers finished, but we are working on a complete report for the board for the cost of that.
Just so we can have that prior to our budget meetings.
Yes, sir.
And then we can give him our decision. And to reiterate, you are preparing essentially what it cost us to support those events
Yes,
last
sir.
year. Okay.
Yes.
And we understand there. Do you think you'll have it by event or cumulative? Because
I could do it by event, and actually it'll probably be just as easy to break out by event, so I'll just have it prepared that way.
It would be interesting to know, simply because one of the tournaments is not a Beavercreek tournament. It is a Centerville tournament that's also hosted here.
Yeah.
The community benefits from it, but it is a Centerville tournament, so it'd just be interesting to know. So at least we had the answer and didn't have to ask it.
Yes, sir. And the benefit is one of those where the community as a whole benefits, but that does not directly trickle down to the fire department benefiting because of the tax structure that supports the fire department. So, and then I will probably have a few notes for you on how our new staffing will impact that. So there'll be the cost associated with it, which will be different than prior years because of our new staffing, but then also how the overall daily staffing will impact as well.
Great. Thank you.
Can I re-clarify, because at the beginning, Chief Van de Vos asked that he wanted to confirm that it was okay to proceed with the awards banquet, and I didn't hear any dissension, so that's fine, but I didn't also want to put that you guys agreed, so if you do agree, I just want to make sure I put it in the minutes, so.
Should we make a motion?
It doesn't have to be a motion, but there was really
Okay.
no answer, and I just didn't know if you wanted to answer or postpone.
As far as I'm concerned, the proposal is made for the awards dinner for the fire department is satisfactory. We know where the funding is coming, sufficient funding from donations, and I have not a problem with that.
As you presented it, I think you've done a good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Paxton, do you have any objection?
No.
Thank you.
No problem.
I just want to make sure you got your answer.
I appreciate that.
Anything else for the chief while we have him at our beck and call?
Thank you for your time today, board.
Thank you. Legal advisor, Ms. Frick?
No report today.
Report. Trustees?
Nope.
Mr. Paxton, do you have anything?
Nope, Happy New Year. Looking
made
forward to another 20 meetings.
26 meetings?
26 meetings, at least.
26 plus.
Yeah.
Ms.
You're allowed to
Graff-
take a vacation too.
Ms. Graff, you have anything to add?
No.
I just have a couple things. Mr. Zaharif, and this is a question I could have put on the agenda, but it came to me during it. And this ties back to the US 35 project. What is the status, or can you, if there's no new update, maybe if you can, by the next meeting, if you can provide us an update as far as, I know that the commissioners called, Mr. Kugler, I think specifically called for a meeting between city managers and township administrators to meet and determine, or begin to discuss ways and means of coming up with a local match for right-of-way acquisition, as well as the project in macro. So any update, is there been any activity since that one meeting?
No, that's since I reported the findings of that last meeting. The county has promised to coordinate those meetings, and the meetings will take place amongst the city managers as well as the township administrator and Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission to start those discussions. Our goal as a committee that we establish is to have something be able to present to city councils, county commissioners, and Beavercreek Township trustees. There was some discussion of also asking Xenia Township to be involved as well. So we can have a recommendation to all the elected officials by the time the next September track meeting takes place.
Okay. As I stated last year, what I would like to see from that is a plan on how not only the 20% of, or whatever percentage that it's deemed that local match needs to be for right-of-way, but also for the revised number that they came back on the total project. I think as a township, we are sitting on a huge opportunity with Valley Springs, but it's not going to happen unless that highway project happens.
That's correct.
We know that. There's no justification for it without it. So from a economic development standpoint, I think it behooves us as a board to work towards something work towards a plan we can support. So, and I would be happy to be part of that.
Just also to throw out, I have had discussions with the new chamber president as well in regards to the US 35 project and the Valley Springs project and how they coordinate with each other. There has been some expressed interest in some parcels on Valley Springs, but it's really contingent on if and when the highway's completed.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to just open up something to think about, and maybe we can talk about in this meeting or the next one, would be as a board, our meeting format. And we implemented a change, at least I believe we did last year about this time, where we started having department heads give their biweekly report. That was under a precedent where we had a part-time administrator, and now we have a full-time administrator. So it would open it up for discussion about shifting that biweekly report to the administrator. The objective was to be able to, A, to hire the right administrator, and B, to be able to hold that administrator accountable. I think it's beneficial to have the department heads here and accessible to be able to answer questions, but personally, I would much rather be looking at our administrator and saying, provide that update for us with the backup support of the department head if there's additional questions.
What was the purpose of the biweekly reports?
If I recall, we can go back through the notes, but it may or may not be in there as far as, but there was discussion, I think, Mr. Paxton, jump in wherever you'd like, but I think it came from, stemming from not knowing what the department heads were doing on a day-to-day or week-by-week basis, and wanting that information firsthand. And so adopting this practice was a way to eliminate those questions because it put them up on stage.
And the written reports, as far as, it gives it to us, so I don't know if you'd want...
I'm not suggesting, again, the written report, I'm suggesting only...
No, okay.
As far as the meeting format, to have that directed from the administrator, but still receive the biweekly reports in our package, just like we are now.
Sure. And what it's turned into is okay, really, because we have the report. They're up there for any questions. If we have questions, we ask them when they're there. I just think it's good to know what's going on down in, as a trustee, to know what's going on down in the lower levels, so.
And like I said, my suggestion is to maintain the written report that we get now in our packet, but essentially shift the presentation at the meeting to the administrator. And it's nothing that we couldn't change again in the future if we needed to.
We have so few questions that I don't know if it makes a difference if we're asking the department head or the administrator, him or herself. Right. So I don't think that's, I don't see a difficulty either way, because if the administrator didn't have the answer, he was going to ask to the department heads.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, what Alex doing, I don't have a problem with him to submit this. We ask him the question.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we know?
I think it would be nice if we had the questions and we get them to him prior to the meeting, because we get our packets on Thursday, and if we had a question, get them to him by Monday morning so he would have a response for us at the meeting. But, maybe that would be.
I try to do that when I
process.
can. I don't always have the ability to do it. I try. I'm guilty of both. So. Do we need to do anything formally to change how we do the meeting, or we just, does that expectation make sense?
Yes, I understand.
Okay, and you have plenty of time to prepare for it
Well, I
now?
won't be at the next meeting, but the fire chief will be willing to take up the next one.
So it's starting in February?
Yeah, I would say the meeting after that, we'll go with
Be willing to answer.
The other thing, Board, I would like
Direct all the
also,
questions.
one thing I would also like to add, and I'll work with the fiscal office on this with the agenda, is any open old business action items, so that we, where we say old business, where there's plenty of old business, we just don't have them listed. Those would be updates on things that the board has asked,
Sure.
Outstanding, so that we keep a track, and all of us are aware of those action items that are out there.
Okay. I had another question then for Ms. Aarons, as far as when we motion, when you call, and when we ask questions.
So Robert's rule states if you are going to discuss an item with a vote in mind, that you make the motion, that the motion is seconded, and then it's discussed. This board and boards for probably the last however many years have done it backwards, because they seem to discuss the project, basically decide what they're going to do, make a motion and vote. And technically that's not
And
actually
then discuss it more.
Right, so, to clarify and move things forward, it might be easier for you in the minutes. If you know that there's going to be a motion, make the motion, second it. It doesn't have to pass. The whole reason is you have the discussion to see if you want it to pass, but that's the technicality of it.
Okay.
Okay, the problem I would have with revising it is we choose not to make a motion. If the motion's already made,
You
and we
vote no.
don't take a vote,
Why wouldn't you take a vote?
Like you present the motion.
well, we decide not to go ahead with whatever it is we're discussing,
You vote.
then you still have a motion there, and so then we have to have a vote that, no. I understand both ways, and that, yes, I understood what Robert's rules was, or are. We should follow them. But when we have made a motion, and then it gets a resolution number, and no action has been taken, and to me, it's sort of a waste of time if we're not going to take action on the resolution, not to put the resolution in as a formal resolution, which is why we discuss it, we come up with it, whatever it is we choose to do, and then we make the motion so we know what it is, where we're headed in the first place. The other way is just going to, I think, in my opinion, proliferate the number of resolutions that will be indicated and keeping track of on the minutes when really no action may take place because we're discussing it and then we decide not to do it. So I just, that's why it has been done in this fashion as long as I can remember, which is a long time.
I think most of the time, and I could be wrong, but I think most of the time when it's a purchase request and when it's certain issues that come before you, you know what the motion's going to be. I absolutely understand that there are certain times that you just want to discuss the matter, and then that's a discussion. I understand that, but even a lot of times when you purchase something, you tend to want to talk about the purchase before you make a motion. When there's absolutely nothing wrong, that if somebody's watching YouTube or reading the minutes, that they see, oh, you made a motion to purchase it, but then you decided not to, and maybe they'll see that it comes back or it doesn't. Okay.
I think
your
it's
call.
6 of one, half a dozen, but not the other.
You could certainly
But that was
try
the
it the
reason
other
why
way.
we've done it the other way.
Yep. And Ms. Graff's
You can
been
make
doing
the-
it longer
right,
than.
there can always be an exception, but you can make it the rule and try to work that way.
What you shouldn't do is make a motion and then start discussing it before it gets a second.
Absolutely.
If the motion is made, it should always have a second, and then you should discuss it, if you want to discuss it. But as soon as the motion gets made, it needs to have a second, or
dies for lack of a
dies for lack of a second.
Right, and then we don't burn time wasting.
That's correct.
And traditionally, we are, as Ms. Graff says, we're discussing, and then the motion takes place, and then second, and then same discussion's coming up. So I would say for the organization of the meeting, and staff has been told, and they do a good job at that, to have a prepared motion in your packets, highlighted and quoted, so that we can have the motion. It could be seconded, then we can have all the discussion, and then if we decide not to take movement on it, or it's delayed, we take those appropriate actions. But I think what we're seeing now is there's discussion on the topic, motion, second, discussion again, and then vote. So
Sometimes there's discussion before there's a second.
Yeah.
Which you
Right.
can't do either.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll make a run at it.
Thank you.
That's why I
We need a
asked.
sergeant of arms.
well, that's the job of the sergeant at arms. Yes.
Right. Okay. Fiscal officer, anything to add?
Nothing other than we are rolling the year. That does take an immense amount of time. It's not just pushing a button, as it's been said. It requires a lot of time, and you will be signing your names here shortly to all the purchase requests and the blankets and the super blankets and everything. And there are reports that we need to turn into state and to the county. So we're working diligently to get that done, and obviously all the departments and the administrator obviously will be fully aware of when they can begin purchasing. That's my update, thanks.
Thank you. Legal invoices.
Board, there's just one legal invoice for today's meeting.
Did you look at it? Yes.
I did.
Okay. I will move to approve invoice from Taft, Stettinius and Hollister for the amount of $5,800.
Can you tell me the invoice number, please?
Should be here, right?
Oh, 2661932.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
This is just-
At this time, need a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, move to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3, conference with attorney pertaining to current or imminent litigation.
Correct.
Only that one, or are you going to go into both?
You can do both. if you want.
Do you want us to do both, well,
Want-
both
want to do
sections, or
separate
you want
motions?
to, let's vote on it separately and then we'll go into it at one point.
Okay.
Second.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to read the time. Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Good, make a motion to go into executive session for ORC 12122G1 to consider the employment, dismissal, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.